From tragedy, a dark night rises. Every legend begins somewhere. For Bruce Wayne, it begins in Crime Alley on a night that would shape his destiny. We turn our gaze to a scene etched in tragedy and rain. A young Bruce, no more than 8, walking home between his loving parents after a night at the movies. Thomas and Martha Wayne are well-to-do, kind-hearted citizens of Gotham, philanthropists who believed in their city. But fate had other plans. In the flicker of a street lamp, a gunman emerges from the darkness. A mugger named Joe Chill demands money and pearls. There's terror, a flash of gunfire, and suddenly Bruce's world is shattered. His parents lie motionless on the cold pavement as the thief flees into the abyss. It is a moment of trauma so profound that its echo will be heard for a lifetime. Young Bruce kneels between the bodies, tears mixing with the rain, forever remembering the last frightened look in his parents' eyes. In the aftermath, a silence falls over the orphan boy, but within that silence, a vow is born. At his parents' grave, under gray skies and weeping clouds, Bruce Wayne makes a solemn promise. He will dedicate his life to fighting crime, to ensure no one else endures what he did. It is a pledge fueled by grief and righteous anger, a child's crusade that will become a man's lifelong mission. The family butler, Alfred Pennyworth, becomes Bruce's guardian and anchor. Picture Alfred as he's often shown, an older gentleman with kind, wise eyes and impeccable poise, offering Bruce comfort and stability in the emptiness of Wayne Manor. In those early years, Alfred is nurse, teacher, and confidant, the one steady light in Bruce's darkening world. As Bruce grows, so too does his determination. He spends his adolescence and early adulthood preparing for a war on crime that only he can see coming. He delves into books and physical training with monastic devotion. We follow him on a journey of learning that spans continents. In one scene, Bruce stands on a mountaintop dojo in Japan, mastering martial arts under the stern gaze of Sensei Yoru. In another, he's in the workshop of escape artist Zatara, honing the art of sleight of hand and the unexpected. These sequences play out like a montage of a young man forging himself into a weapon. Every punch, every lock picked, every lesson a step toward becoming the vigilante he envisions. Bruce is in his early 20s, focused, intense, carrying the memory of his parents like a locket of pain he cannot put down. Yet even as he trains, Bruce Wayne is still only human. He hasn't donned the cape and cowl yet. At this point, he's an aspiring crime fighter in a simple disguise, prowling the streets in black clothes and a ski mask. Gotham's underworld doesn't know it's being watched by its future Dark Knight. Bruce's early attempts at vigilantism in these plain clothes are earnest but not entirely effective. We can imagine one of those nights. Bruce intervenes in a mugging downtown. He manages to stop the crime, but takes a beating in the process, his mask nearly ripped off by a thug's rough hands. Panting in a dark alley, bruised and frustrated, Bruce realizes sheer willpower isn't enough. Criminals aren't afraid of a man, not even one as driven as him. He needs to become more, something elemental, something that strikes fear in the superstitious and cowardly lot of Gotham's criminals, becoming the Batman. Back in Wayne Manor, in his late 20s, Bruce contemplates how to fulfill his vow. He is haunted not only by the memory of loss, but also by a question. How can one man turn fear against those who prey on the fearful? The answer comes from the night itself. In a now iconic scene, Bruce sits brooding in his father's study, the room lit only by the glow of a fireplace. On the desk lies an open journal and a scattered blueprint of a crime-fighting suit that hasn't yet come to fruition. Rain patters against the window. Bruce closes his eyes, seeking guidance in the silence, perhaps even speaking aloud to the spirits of his parents. What must I do? Just then, a crash. Glass shatters as a dark shape bursts into the study. A bat, massive, black, its wings stretching wide, has flown in through the window. It circles Bruce once, twice, its leathery wings stirring the air, before perching atop a bust in the corner. Its eyes gleam red in the firelight as it lets out an eerie shriek that echoes through the halls. Bruce's heart pounds, but not in fear, in awe, in revelation. Yes, a bat, a creature of the night, a symbol of darkness and dread. In that moment, Bruce understands what he must become. Alfred steps into the study, alarmed by the noise, and finds Bruce still as a statue, staring at the bat as it finally flutters back out into the stormy night. Turning to Alfred, Bruce speaks in a low, resolute tone. "I shall become a bat." With Alfred's help, the young billionaire channels his resources into a new purpose. Beneath Wayne Manor, an ancient cavern is repurposed, outfitted as a high-tech bat cave over time. We see Bruce and Alfred cleaning out stalactites and guano, installing computer systems and engineering bays amid limestone walls and echoing drips of water. Each addition, the costume vault, the crime lab, the sleek black car that will become the Batmobile, brings Bruce's vision closer to reality. Then comes the night it all truly begins. Gotham's criminals whisper of a wraith in the darkness, a figure cloaked in midnight black who swoops from rooftops and vanishes in clouds of smoke. The Batman has arrived. Bruce debuts his alter ego on Gotham streets, and this time he succeeds. Under the guise of a bat, he is terrifying. A silent guardian who appears out of nowhere, strikes swiftly, and disappears, leaving criminals bound for the police. One can imagine a burglar on a rooftop pausing under the moonlight, only to feel a presence behind him. He turns and for a split second sees two white eyes and a billowing cape, then terror. Batman hurls him against a chimney and with a stern, quiet fury growls, "Tell your friends about me." Gotham's urban legend is born in that instant. The city will never be the same. Batman's early crusade is a lonely one. The police, led by Commissioner James Gordon, are unsure what to make of this vigilante. Gordon himself, however, grows to trust the Bat. By day, Gordon only knows Bruce Wayne as a wealthy philanthropist who donates to city causes. By night, Gordon shines the bat signal into the cloudy sky, a beacon of trust, calling for Batman's aid when a case seems beyond the normal police methods. Their partnership is tacit and respectful. Two good men on the same side of justice, albeit in different ways. During these initial years, Bruce maintains a careful dual identity. By day, he plays the part of the billionaire playboy, attending galas, funding charitable projects, and projecting an image of a slightly aloof, carefree aristocrat. It's a mask almost as important as the one he wears at night. Bruce smiles for the public and flashes disarming wit, even as inside he harbors the ever-present ache of his loss and the nocturnal urgency of his mission. The contrast is stark. Those who meet Bruce Wayne see a charming if somewhat detached young man. Those who meet Batman see a relentless force of nature. This dichotomy, the daylight Bruce and the midnight Batman, will be a source of tension and introspection for Bruce throughout his life, and one of the central themes of our story. Love and loss in Gotham. Just as Bruce's war on crime gains momentum, life throws him an unexpected lifeline of happiness. Her name is Andrea Beaumont, a smart and compassionate woman from a wealthy family, whom Bruce meets during those formative years before fully becoming Batman. Andrea is a mirror to Bruce in many ways. She too has known sorrow and harbors her own secret pain. They meet at a graveyard, both visiting lost loved ones, and an instant connection sparks between them. For the first time since his parents' death, Bruce finds his hardened heart softening in Andrea's presence. Their romance is tender and genuine. We see scenes of Bruce laughing freely with Andrea on the manor grounds, engaging in playful karate sparring that ends in a warm embrace. Alfred, watching from a distance, dares to hope his surrogate son might find a life beyond the shadows. Bruce himself starts to dream of a normal future, a life where the manor is filled with love and even, perhaps, children. A life where he doesn't have to don a cape each night and walk alone in darkness. It's during this time that Bruce is torn between two promises, the vow he made to his parents and the potential promise of a new life with Andrea. In a poignant scene directly from Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, Bruce stands once more before his parents' gravestones, drenched in a downpour, conflicted beyond measure. Lightning cracks the sky as he kneels, anguish twisting his face. He speaks to his parents as if they were there. "Please, I need it to be different now. I know I made a promise, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy." His voice breaks. In it, we hear a man begging for a chance at normalcy, asking the memory of his parents for release from his vow. It's one of the rare moments we ever hear Bruce Wayne admit his own desires and vulnerabilities so nakedly. The storm seems to answer with silence, leaving Bruce with the agonizing feeling that he must choose duty over love. When Bruce, buoyed by hope, proposes to Andrea, she accepts tearfully and joyously. It looks as though Bruce might truly escape his dark path. But Gotham's shadows are long, and fate is cruel. Andrea's father, a businessman entangled with unsavory mob debts, is in deadly trouble. To save her father's life, Andrea abruptly breaks off the engagement and flees Gotham with him, leaving Bruce only a Dear John letter and the ring return. Bruce reads her parting letter on a lonely evening, and something in him collapses. The last ray of light in his life has been extinguished. Heartbroken and with nothing left to lose, Bruce Wayne fully embraces the mantle of Batman. The bat-shaped void in his life is filled by his mission once more. The timing is grimly poetic. On the very evening that should have been their wedding, Bruce dons his newly crafted bat suit for the first time. Alfred watches as Bruce emerges from the shadows of the cave, transformed, no longer merely a man, but the Batman, with sorrow channeled into resolve. Bruce's destiny and Gotham's are now permanently intertwined. Years later, Andrea Beaumont will resurface in Bruce's life under tragic circumstances, as the vigilante phantasm, seeking vengeance for her father's murder. But for now, in our chronology, she is gone, and her departure leaves Bruce more isolated than ever. The emotional lesson of this chapter in Bruce's life is profound. In losing Andrea, Bruce internalizes a bitter truth. As Batman, personal happiness may always be out of reach. This realization becomes a quiet refrain in his life, a melancholic motif that will echo whenever he dares to feel contentment. He carries on, but that human part of him, the part that yearned for a normal life, is buried deeper under the armor of the Bat. Allies in the darkness. Despite choosing a path of solitude, Bruce doesn't remain alone forever. Over time, his mission draws in allies, forming a surrogate family he never expected to have. The first and most steadfast is Alfred himself. The unflappable butler is far more than a servant. He's the medic patching up Bruce's wounds after brutal nights, the sage advisor cautioning him against extremes, and often the only voice of reason Bruce hears in his most obsessive moments. In the dark vastness of the Batcave, after a harrowing patrol, Bruce might slump into the high-backed chair before the Bat computer, cowled head in hands. Alfred approaches with that quintessential silver tray bearing a steaming cup of herbal tea. "A successful evening, Master Bruce?" he asks in his dry British tone, which barely hides the concern in his eyes. Alfred's presence is a balm, a reminder of humanity in Batman's cave of shadows. In Gotham City, as Batman's reputation grows, he also earns the cautious respect of Commissioner Gordon. We imagine an early morning scene, dawn breaking over the skyline, Batman and Gordon standing atop police headquarters beside the still glowing bat signal. Gordon offers Batman a paper cup of coffee, and for a moment they talk not as vigilante and cop, but as colleagues, perhaps even friends, united by a common cause. Gordon's faith in Batman becomes a cornerstone of Batman's ability to operate. While other officials and cops distrust the Dark Knight, Gordon defends him, arguing that Batman is an essential, albeit unconventional force for good in Gotham. This alliance between law, Gordon, and vigilante justice, Batman, underscores one of our themes, the blurred line between justice and vengeance. Batman often walks that line, but Gordon's trust suggests Batman still firmly embodies justice, not unchecked revenge. Soon, a young life enters Bruce's orbit that will change it forever. Dick Grayson. Dick is a bright-spirited, acrobatic boy who tragically parallels Bruce's own story. As a child performing with his parents in the Flying Grayson's trapeze act, Dick witnesses his mother and father fall to their deaths, sabotaged by a gangster named Tony Zuko. Bruce, attending that fateful circus show, feels an immediate kinship with the orphan boy and takes Dick in as his ward. At first, Bruce intends only to provide the child with a home and comfort, hoping to spare him from the thirst for vengeance that Bruce knows all too well. But as months pass, Bruce sees in Dick the same fire that once drove himself. One night, the determined Dick Grayson sneaks out, trying to hunt down Zuko on his own. Batman intervenes just in time to save Dick from danger, revealing his secret identity to the boy in the process. Instead of fear, Bruce finds admiration and a grim understanding in Dick's eyes. In that moment, Bruce realizes that maybe, just maybe, fighting crime together could heal them both. Thus, Batman gains a partner. The first Robin is born. Training Dick is a delicate balance for Bruce. He's protective, yet he also knows the value of channeling Dick's grief into something positive, much as he did with his own. We see training montages in the cave, Bruce sparring with Dick on the mats, teaching him combat techniques, or at the Bat computer, showing him how to analyze forensic clues. Dick's natural acrobatic ability and youthful enthusiasm make him an adept student. He also brings something that the dark halls of the Batcave sorely lack: laughter. Robin's bright costume, red, green, and yellow, is a deliberate contrast to Batman's darkness, a beacon of hope amid the gloom. With Robin swinging by his side through Gotham's skylines, Batman's crusade suddenly feels less lonely. Robin's arrival also affects Batman's image in Gotham. Citizens who once feared Batman begin to see the duo and think, perhaps this Dark Knight can be trusted if he's caring for a child partner. But Bruce is ever cautious about Dick's safety. On missions, Batman is fiercely protective of Robin, at times to Robin's chagrin. Bruce's own childhood trauma of loss means he cannot bear the thought of losing Dick. This protective streak will be both a strength and a source of future tension in their relationship, as Dick grows into adolescence and seeks more independence. Following Robin, another ally emerges: Batgirl. Barbara Gordon, the commissioner's daughter, is inspired by Batman and Robin's example to fight crime in her own right. Without Bruce's initial blessing, Barbara dons cape and cowl, a homemade ensemble at first, and intervenes in a dangerous situation to save her father. Batman, surprised but impressed by her courage and ingenuity, eventually welcomes her into the fold. Batgirl proves herself time and again, and as Bruce comes to trust her, she becomes an essential member of his team. Barbara brings her own strengths: a keen mind, already dabbling in computer science and library sciences by day, and unyielding determination, not to mention a certain lightness that balances Bruce's grim intensity. Within a few short years, what was once a one-man war expands into a Bat family: Batman, Robin, and Batgirl, supported by Alfred and informally by Gordon. This surrogate family offers Bruce something he never thought he'd have again: companionship and even a semblance of paternal pride. As Mr. Freeze later astutely observes, "You were just a boy when you lost your family, but you keep trying to create a surrogate family for yourself." Indeed, consciously or not, Bruce surrounds himself with people who share his mission, and in doing so, mitigates the loneliness that threatened to consume him. In quiet moments in the Batcave after a successful case, Bruce might permit himself a rare gentle smile, watching Dick excitedly recount to Barbara how he outwitted the Riddler, or how they together saved the day. Alfred might catch Bruce's eye and share a knowing nod, silently acknowledging that these bonds are good for him. However, with these newfound connections also come new vulnerabilities. Enemies now have more targets to threaten, and Bruce's concern for his partners will at times cloud his judgment. The theme of family, found, built, and sometimes broken, will play a critical role as our narrative moves forward. Rogues and reflections. No story of Batman is complete without his rogues gallery. The extraordinary men and women who challenge him, each a mirror reflecting a distorted facet of his own psyche. In the DCAU, many of Gotham's villains are given rich backstories and complex motives, allowing Bruce's encounters with them to be more than simple battles of good versus evil. They become moral and emotional trials that test Batman's resolve and ethics. The Joker, Batman's arch-nemesis, is an agent of chaos, a living nightmare clad in purple. With a maniacal laugh echoing through Arkham's halls, Joker tests Batman's one rule: no killing. No matter what terror Joker inflicts, and he inflicts plenty, Batman steadfastly refuses to take lethal revenge. Time and again, Batman captures the Joker alive and returns him to Arkham Asylum, exemplifying Bruce's unwavering commitment to justice over vengeance. Their conflict is a dark dance. Joker pushes, Batman pulls back. Yet, amid the violence, there's a strange empathy Batman has. He understands that Joker is a lost cause in terms of rehabilitation, but Batman won't break his code. As noted by observers, no matter how many times these rogues try to kill him, Bruce, above all, wants positive change, not retribution. The Joker, of course, exploits this mercy at every turn. His wickedness knows no bounds. From threatening Gotham with poisoned laughter to deeply personal attacks such as trying to drive Commissioner Gordon insane or tormenting the Batman's young allies. Through it all, Batman remains resolute. Joker will be stopped, but never killed by his hand. This moral stand, though praiseworthy, foreshadows dire consequences in Bruce's later years. Two-Face, Harvey Dent, perhaps the most tragic of Batman's foes, because Harvey was Bruce's dear friend. We recall Harvey Dent in happier times, a charismatic district attorney sharing bravos and toasts with Bruce Wayne at a fancy dinner, or joking about Bruce's perpetual lateness, not knowing Bruce's nighttime activities. But Harvey's dark side, latent dissociative anger, is literally brought to the surface when an accident scars half his face. Transformed into the criminal Two-Face, Harvey becomes obsessed with duality and chance, flipping a coin to decide his every action. Batman's confrontations with Two-Face are charged with personal sorrow. Bruce feels guilt, wondering if he missed signs of his friend's breakdown. In one emotional encounter, Batman tries to reach the Harvey he knew. "Harvey, I know you're still in there." But Two-Face, voice gravelly and hurt, responds with bitterness that Bruce can never understand the fracture in his soul. Two-Face is a reflection of dual identity turned inside out. Where Bruce balances Bruce Wayne and Batman, Harvey's two halves are at war. Batman's refusal to give up on Harvey, repeatedly catching him and sending him for treatment rather than giving into anger, highlights Bruce's enduring hope for redemption, even in the face of despair. Mr. Freeze, Dr. Victor Fries, a villain of ice but also of tears. Freeze's origin in Heart of Ice is one of the most poignant in the DCEU. Once a scientist desperate to save his terminally ill wife Nora, Victor Freeze was wronged by a ruthless corporate boss, and in the process was mutated into a cold-blooded being who can only survive in sub-zero conditions. Clad in an armored suit, Mr. Freeze seeks vengeance against those who took his wife and his humanity from him. When Batman first encounters Freeze, he isn't just facing a criminal with a freeze gun. He's facing a man who embodies grief and anger that rival Bruce's own. In their first confrontation, Freeze encases Batman in a block of ice, nearly killing him, but not before bitterly telling Batman that he could never understand such loss. Yet Bruce does understand, and as he thaws out and investigates, he discovers Freeze's backstory. In a famous scene, Batman, suffering from a cold himself, watches a recording of Victor speaking lovingly to his comatose wife. In that moment, Bruce's anger melts into compassion. He sees Victor not as a monster, but as a victim. By the end of the episode, after defeating Freeze, mostly by outmaneuvering him rather than overpowering him, Batman shows a rare tenderness. He ensures Nora is safely cared for and even confronts the villainous CEO on his misdeeds. Mr. Freeze, defeated and weeping frozen tears in Arkham, is someone Batman actually pities. Freeze's tragedies continue in later episodes in the feature film Sub-Zero, but Batman's empathy remains constant. This dynamic underscores Batman's capacity for empathy and reaffirms a key theme. Even in vengeance, Batman seeks justice, not cruelty. Poison Ivy, Dr. Pamela Isley, introduced initially as an eco-terrorist avenging the destruction of plant life, Poison Ivy is another character who blurs moral lines. As Pamela Isley, she was an idealistic botanist. As Ivy, she becomes something of an anti-heroine, fighting for nature against human greed. Batman's clashes with Ivy often involve ethical questions about environmental justice, while her methods, which include seduction, poisonous kisses, and turning people into plant-like husks, are unquestionably criminal. Her message of environmental preservation isn't lost on Batman. We see Batman's stern disapproval soften slightly in episodes where Ivy shows genuine care, like when she briefly tries living a normal life, caring for abandoned children and plants, only to have it fall apart. Batman apprehends Ivy when she goes too far, but he also arranges for her to be held in an Arkham wing with abundant plant life, a subtle act of mercy for a woman who literally needs greenery to feel sane. In Ivy, Bruce confronts what happens when a noble cause is twisted by trauma, a mirror of how his own quest could be perverted by obsession if he's not careful. The Riddler, Edward Nygma. A brilliant mind gone awry, Riddler challenges Batman's intellect rather than his emotions. Their encounters are an ode to detective work, complex puzzles, riddles broadcast across Gotham, death traps that only wit can escape. Batman often solves Riddler's games by remaining calm and focused, showcasing Bruce's analytical genius, a part of him sometimes overshadowed by the physicality of Batman. But behind Riddler's flamboyant question mark persona is a man consumed by pride and a feeling of not getting his due. Batman's triumphs over Riddler often carry a tinge of tragedy too, as Nygma's inability to beat Batman at the cerebral duel drives him deeper into madness. For Bruce, each victory reaffirms his commitment to intellect and reason, proving that brute force isn't his only tool. Harley Quinn, Dr. Harleen Quinzel. Perhaps one of the most unique additions of the DCAU, Harley started as Joker's sidekick, but evolved into a sympathetic character of her own. Once a psychiatrist who fell in love with Joker's warped mind, Harley is both a victim and perpetrator. Batman's interactions with Harley are surprisingly gentle when he can afford them to be. In one memorable instance, after Harley attempts to reform and then suffers a relapse, courtesy of the Joker's unhealthy influence, Batman intervenes not only to stop her crime, but to save her from self-destruction. There is a scene where Harley, in an effort to prove herself, kidnaps a socialite and ends up on a ledge in a precarious fight with Batman. She slips, nearly plummeting to her death, but Batman catches her. He not only saves her life, but also comforts her in a small way. As the police take Harley back to Arkham, Batman hands her the pretty dress she had bought earlier that day, so it won't be ruined or lost. Harley, tears in her eyes, says through a grateful smile, "You really didn't have to look out for me, Bats." And Batman replies softly, "I know what it's like to have a bad day." It's a powerful moment that shows Batman's compassion. He sees Harley not just as a criminal, but as someone ensnared by the Joker's manipulation, and he genuinely hopes she can find a normal life someday. Each of these rogues and others like the Penguin, Scarecrow, Clayface, and Bane test different facets of Batman's character. They push his limits physically, mentally, and ethically. Yet Batman's response is almost always the same. He finds a way to win without losing himself. He refuses to cross the line into lethal vengeance or despair. As observers have noted, most of Batman's enemies fail to reform, but he keeps trying to give them a second chance. This persistent mercy is at once Batman's greatest virtue, and as we will see, a source of future heartbreak. Through his rogues, the theme of justice versus vengeance is constantly explored. Batman chooses justice, but we are left to ponder. At what cost does he keep making that choice? And how long can one man bear the burden of fighting monsters without becoming a monster himself? Shadows of the past and future. As the years press on, Gotham changes, and so does Bruce. He's no longer the young man who first donned the cape. The mission that began as a sprint becomes a marathon. We now enter the era depicted in the new Batman adventures, where time's passage is evident. Bruce's face is a bit more lined, his manner even more stern. Wayne Manor feels emptier. The Batcave's shadows feel longer. Some members of Bruce's makeshift family have drifted away, and new ones have arrived, highlighting the evolution and toll on Batman's personal life. Dick Grayson, the first Robin, grows into a young man and eventually decides to step out of Batman's shadow. Their partnership ends after an incident that cuts deeply into their trust, an incident later recounted in the episode Old Wounds. In a flashback, we see what led to Dick's departure. Bruce, in his obsessive war against crime, goes too far by involving and deceiving Barbara, Batgirl, without telling Dick, who was romantically involved with her at the time. When Dick discovers that Batgirl is working with Batman, and worse, that Bruce kept the secret, it triggers a fierce argument. Dick accuses Bruce of treating them like pawns in his war, of not respecting them as people. Bruce, defensive and unyielding, responds with cold rationale. It was for their safety, for the mission. The fight is heated and ends with Dick storming out of the Batcave, tearing off the Robin insignia. He disappears into the night, and Bruce is left, for one of the few times in his life, calling out uselessly to an empty space, "Dick, wait!" The damage is done. Robin is gone. For a time, Dick's absence leaves a void. Bruce throws himself even harder into crime fighting to cope with the guilt and loneliness. Dick eventually resurfaces in Gotham as Nightwing, a new solo hero with a new black and blue costume and a more independent attitude. While Nightwing will occasionally aid Batman, their relationship is strained. When they stand together on a rooftop now, an uncomfortable silence often fills the space where friendly banter used to be. There's respect, yes, and the bond of shared history, but also a distance. Bruce, true to form, struggles to express regret or affection, while Dick, now an adult, maintains emotional walls of his own. The theme of family lost comes full circle here. Just as Bruce once lost his parents, he has in a way lost a son, albeit not to death, but to a rift of his own making. It's another wound Bruce carries, silently and heavily. Amid this change, Bruce finds himself unexpectedly taking on another young ward. Tim Drake, a street-smart Gotham kid who crosses Batman's path, becomes the new Robin. Tim's story in the DCAU is a blend of the comic versions of Jason Todd and Tim Drake. He's a kid from a troubled home, his father involved with Two-Face's gang, who idolizes Batman. When Tim's father goes missing, the boy ends up helping Batman solve the case. Impressed by the kid's tenacity and seeing his circumstances, Bruce offers Tim a way out of his dangerous life on the streets, become his new partner. Tim is eager, brimming with hero worship for the Dark Knight. He is younger than Dick was when he started, and in many ways even more raw. Bruce, perhaps seeking redemption for how things ended with Dick, takes Tim under his wing with a gentler hand, at least at first. He trains Tim, but also tries to protect the boy's innocence. However, the Gotham of this era is even darker than before, and protecting innocence becomes an increasingly difficult task. One by one, Bruce's old foes return with new vengeance. Mr. Freeze comes back, now more monstrous, reduced to just a head attached to a robotic suit, and more despairing than ever, lashing out at the world in pain. A once child star named Baby Doll, who had seemingly reformed, suffers a breakdown and teams up with Killer Croc for a crime spree, only to end in tragedy that Batman is helpless to truly avert. Each encounter in these later years seems tinged with extra melancholy, as if to remind Bruce that despite all his efforts, true happy endings are rare. It weighs on him. In one episode, after a particularly heart-wrenching outcome, Tim, still learning the ropes, optimistically remarks that at least they, the heroes, are okay. Bruce, with a faraway look, responds, "Sometimes there are no happy endings." It's a bitter lesson he's imparting to a child, one born of long, hard experience. Bruce's personal life also takes complicated turns. He and Barbara Gordon develop a closeness that tiptoes on the edge of romance, a controversial storyline in the DCAU subtext. Barbara is college-age now, and Bruce is well into his 30s. The two share a bond through their work as Batman and Batgirl, and with Dick gone, they find themselves spending more time together. The relationship is understated and mostly off-screen, but there are hints, an awkward conversation here, a protective concern there, that Bruce allowed himself another fragile chance at personal happiness with Barbara. Yet, like all of Bruce's relationships, this too is constrained by the demands of being Batman. It never blossoms openly, and in some ways it contributes to further strain with Dick, who once dated Barbara himself, making this a thorny triangle indeed. It's another example of Bruce reaching for human connection, but finding it tangled up in the thorns of his alter ego. Through these years, Alfred remains the constant. However, even Alfred's patience is tested as he watches his son endure physical and emotional punishment with no end in sight. In one telling instance, after Bruce narrowly survives a dangerous encounter but fails to save a life, Alfred gently suggests that maybe the fight is taking too much, that perhaps it might be time to consider an end, or at least a change. Bruce bristles at the suggestion. The mission in his mind cannot end as long as Gotham's threats remain. Yet Alfred's words linger, highlighting the creeping thought in Bruce's own mind. How long can I keep this up? The breaking point. Even the strongest iron can shatter from accumulated stress. For Bruce, the breaking point comes with a Joker-shaped hammer blow. Up to now, Batman has always managed to keep his code intact. Never kill, never stoop to the level of the criminals. But the Joker, relentless in his cruelty, finds a way to inflict a wound that will never fully heal. In the film Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, a flashback to Bruce's later years as Batman, while Tim is Robin, reveals the terrible night when the Joker and Harley Quinn kidnap young Tim Drake. They take the boy to the abandoned Arkham Asylum and subject him to an unspeakably cruel torture, aiming to break his mind and remold him in Joker's image. By the time Batman and Batgirl discover them, it's too late. Tim has been psychologically brainwashed, dressed in a grotesque parody of a little Joker, and driven to near madness. The Joker has accomplished the unthinkable. He's effectively stolen Robin, turning Batman's own protege into a weapon against him. The confrontation is harrowing. In a chilling video the Joker plays for Batman, we see fragments of what Tim endured: electroshock, chemicals, and relentless psychological abuse, all to satisfy the Joker's sick joke of creating a Joker Jr. out of the boy wonder. Batman's fury in this moment is unlike anything we've seen. He lunges at the Joker, nearly ready to do what he's always refused to do. They fight brutally amidst the rusted medical tables and flickering lights of Arkham's depths. All the while, Harley Quinn tussles with Batgirl, and the brainwashed Tim watches, giggling intermittently, a broken child caught between identities. In the climax of this flashback, Joker corners Batman by threatening to harm Tim. He hands the dazed Robin a revolver with a gag flag and commands him to kill Batman, taunting, "Make Daddy proud. Deliver the punchline." We see tears struggle in Tim's eyes as his small hands raise the gun, finger trembling on the trigger, pointed at Batman, the surrogate father who had sworn to protect him. In that heartbeat, something snaps inside Tim. Rather than shoot Batman, Tim swings the gun toward Joker and pulls the trigger. The bang flag shoots out, impaling the Joker in the chest. The clown prince of crime collapses in shock, laughing one last time at the irony, and dies with a ghastly grin. Batman rushes to Tim's side as Harley screams in denial and flees. The Joker is finally definitively gone, but it's a Pyrrhic victory. Tim Drake is shattered by guilt, pain, and trauma. He collapses, sobbing, as Batman tries to console him. Later, we learn Batman takes the blame upon himself, deeply. He forbids Tim from ever donning the Robin costume again, effectively ending the boy's career as a hero out of fear for his life and sanity. Bruce's precise words in the show are delivered with a heavy heart. He tells Barbara that Tim is finished as Robin. "No one is to blame but me. I took him in, trained him. I wasn't prepared for this." This incident is the death knell for Batman's era. In the wake of Joker's demise and Tim's trauma, Bruce's spirit is broken. He withdraws from his allies emotionally even more than before. We imagine nights in the cave where Bruce stands alone before the Robin costume display case, the emptiness in the mansion pressing on him like never before. Barbara remains as Batgirl for a time, but even she senses Bruce's light dimming. One by one, the Bat family falls away. Dick is long gone to Bloodhaven, Tim is recovering under psychological care, and later by his own choice distances himself from Bruce. With Bruce's blessing, Tim is eventually adopted by a loving couple and builds a life outside of crime fighting. And Barbara moves on to focus on her career in the GCPD. Bruce is left with only Alfred by his side again, and even Alfred, now elderly, is urging Bruce to consider hanging up the cape. Batman's cynicism, by now, is at its peak. The DCAU portrayal doesn't shy away from showing us a Bruce Wayne who has been worn down by the years of endless crusade. The idealism he held in his youth, that he could make Gotham need no more Batman, has eroded. Gotham still has crime. New villains rise even as old ones fall. And now his greatest nemesis, the Joker, achieved a win by corrupting something pure and good in Bruce's life. It's a bitter pill of failure that Bruce will never fully expel. He grows harder, colder. In the new Batman adventures, there's a subtle shift. Bruce's jaw is a bit more set, his tone more curt. A kid like Tim once brought a smile to his face. Now Bruce rarely smiles at all. And yet Bruce doesn't quit immediately. Stubborn as ever, he continues being Batman for some years beyond Tim's retirement. Perhaps he believes he has nothing left to lose, or perhaps the mission is all he has. This is the autumn of his career. Lonely nights with only the sound of his grappling hook firing and his own heavy breaths in the silence. He's in his 50s as we approach the chronological end of the DCAU's Batman story, and Gotham's criminals still fear the dark flapping cape that occasionally passes overhead. Finally comes the night that breaks the Bat's back, not through violence or villainy, but through the betrayal of his own body. We witness this in the opening scene of Batman Beyond. Bruce, now in his mid-50s, still dons the costume, a high-tech new bat suit that augments his strength as age is catching up to him. During a rescue mission to save a kidnapped girl, Bruce suddenly clutches his chest. His heart gives out in mid-fight. In desperation, as a thug moves in for the kill and Bruce is too weak to fight hand-to-hand, Batman picks up the thug's dropped gun and points it at him to ward him off. The criminal flees. The girl is safe, but Bruce Wayne is mortified. He stands there thunderstruck by what he's done. The one thing he swore never to do, use a gun, even for just a bluffed moment, has happened. The tool of the coward that killed his parents was in his hand. And in that instant, Bruce sees how far he's been pushed. The look on his face behind the cowl isn't triumph for saving someone, it's utter disgust with himself. In the aftermath of that incident, Bruce, sweating and shaken, walks out of the warehouse into the night air. The gun drops from his hand, clattering on the ground. He stares at it, and then at his gloved hands, as if they belong to a stranger. "Never again," he whispers. That night in the solitude of the Batcave, Bruce Wayne removes the cowl. We see him gently place it on a stand, the cave's lights reflecting off its empty white eyelets. Alfred is perhaps already gone by this point. The show implies Alfred passed away, or at least is retired by the time of Batman Beyond. So it's alone that Bruce whispers into the darkness, "No more." The bats in the cave rustle, as if to protest the silence that will follow. After decades of war on crime, the Dark Knight retires. The bat signal will go dark, the gear will gather dust. Gotham must try to fend for itself, for Bruce can give no more. Dusk and dawn, legacy of the bat. Our story could end there, in darkness and solitude. But even as one chapter closes, another opens, bringing a new dawn in an unexpected form. Though we are focusing on Bruce's journey, it's fitting to acknowledge how the legacy of Batman lives on, even as Bruce ages beyond the ability to carry it. In the futuristic Gotham of Batman Beyond, set about 20 years later, a teenager named Terry McGinnis stumbles upon the now elderly Bruce Wayne and discovers his secret. Bruce in this era is in his 70s, grizzled, alone with only a Great Dane, Ace for company, and more cantankerous than ever. Initially, Bruce wants nothing to do with mentoring a successor. He's long sworn off that life. But Terry, driven by a tragedy of his own, his father is murdered by a conspiracy within Bruce's former company, pleads for Bruce's help. Reluctantly, Bruce agrees, and in doing so, something remarkable happens. Bruce gets a chance at redemption and family one last time. Terry becomes the new Batman, wearing an advanced suit and learning from Bruce's years of wisdom. Their relationship starts off rocky. Bruce is demanding and gruff, treating Terry more like an employee than a son. Yet over time, we see a genuine bond form. Bruce, who once failed to balance being a mentor and a father figure, tries to do better with Terry. He's still tough on the kid. Old habits die hard. But he also shows pride and protectiveness in quieter ways. In the Batcave, the once empty halls echo again with purpose, as Bruce's guiding voice directs Terry through missions via comlink. For Bruce, every night Terry goes out, as Batman is a mix of living vicariously and enduring the worry that he might lose another child to the crusade. But Terry has a resilience and a groundedness that even Bruce admires. This passing of the torch allows Bruce to see that maybe his life's work will not die with him. Gotham will have a Batman as long as it needs one. One of the most touching codas to Bruce's story comes in the Justice League Unlimited episode epilogue. Though it's beyond the strict solo Batman tale, it directly concerns Bruce and Terry. Terry learns that he is, in fact, Bruce's biological son through covert DNA engineering, a reveal that initially angers him, making him feel like a pawn of fate. But a wise old friend of Bruce's, Amanda Waller, explains to Terry that Bruce, despite all his flaws and failures, has one enduring trait that truly makes him Batman: compassion. She notes that Terry, though a different person, shares Bruce's compassion and sense of justice. She reminds Terry and us as viewers that Bruce's endless fight wasn't just about revenge. It was about protecting others, about ensuring no child had to suffer what he did, about giving even his enemies a chance to be better. In the end, Terry embraces being Bruce's son in spirit and blood and chooses to continue as Batman not out of obligation, but because he wants to. He even plans to propose to his longtime girlfriend, determined not to repeat Bruce's mistakes of letting personal happiness slip away. And in a quietly beautiful moment, Terry returns to the Batcave where Bruce, now very old and frail, is making a simple bowl of soup for the two of them. As Terry arrives, Bruce greets him not as an apprentice, but almost like a father welcoming his son home for dinner. It's understated, but in Bruce's eyes there's a glimmer of contentment. After so many years of loneliness and regret, he's no longer alone. His legacy and family live on. Gotham is in good hands, and perhaps, for the first time, Bruce allows himself to feel proud and at peace. Conclusion: the meditative night. As our long journey nears its end, let's step back and reflect on the tapestry of Bruce Wayne's life in the DCEU. A life as complex and shadowed as the city he swore to protect. Trauma and grief set him on his path, but also gave him an empathy for others' suffering. Dual identity was his armor, and also his prison. Bruce Wayne and Batman, two halves of one man, each necessary and yet often at odds. He sought justice over vengeance, believing in the power of mercy and hoping, perhaps foolishly, that even the worst people could change. And through it all, Bruce Wayne evolved, from a vengeful boy to a disciplined guardian, to a mentor and father figure, and finally to a weary veteran who had to learn to let go. It's almost poetic how the story cycles. An orphaned boy creates the Batman to deal with his pain. Decades later, an orphaned boy, Terry, helps an old Bruce heal from his pain. The bat signal that once called Bruce to duty eventually calls forth a new hero, while Bruce steps into the twilight. In the quiet of his later years, perhaps Bruce finally understands what Alfred, Gordon, Dick, Barbara, and Tim had all tried to impart: that Bruce Wayne was never truly alone, and that even Batman needed love and support. His parents' memory guided him, yes, but it was the living relationships that truly defined his journey. For all the darkness in Batman's tale, there's a peaceful reassurance in where we leave Bruce. Gotham is safer than it was. The demons that haunted his nights, both within and without, have largely been laid to rest. In our mind's eye, let's paint the final scene. An elderly Bruce Wayne dozing in a cozy armchair in Wayne Manor's study. A cane rests against the side. The grandfather clock, secret door to the Batcave, ticks softly in the background. Around Bruce are artifacts of a lifetime. A framed photograph of young Bruce with Thomas and Martha, smiling on a long-ago sunny day. A portrait of Alfred. A display case perhaps containing an old battered batarang or the original cape carefully folded. There's a faint glow of the city through the window, but it's quiet, peaceful. Bruce in sleep no longer frowns but looks content. Maybe he dreams of walking through a meadow with his parents again, or simply relishes the silence unbroken by alarms. For the listener drifting to sleep, the image is a comforting one. Even the dark night can find rest. The narrative voice, gentle and low, might say, "And so, in the heart of Gotham, the Batman's watch finally ended. The city continued as cities do, sometimes in peril, but ever protected by those he inspired. And Bruce Wayne, who had given everything to his mission, found at last a measure of peace in the knowledge that he had made a difference and that others would carry on the fight." In the quiet halls of Wayne Manor, the legend of the Dark Knight becomes a whisper, a lullaby carried on the nighttime breeze, assuring Gotham's children that they can sleep safely in their beds. Batman's story in the DCAU is ultimately a mythic saga of a hero's life, with all the triumphs and tragedies that entails. It teaches us about the cost of nobility, the necessity of hope, and the enduring power of compassion. Through the meditative retelling of this saga, perhaps we find not only entertainment, but also solace. If Batman can face his demons and come through on the other side, maybe we all can find the strength to confront our own shadows. And as you close your eyes now, imagine a final comfort, the silhouette of a bat symbol against the moon, watching over the world, vigilant so that we can rest. The Dark Knight has earned his rest as well, and in that well-earned peace lies the true victory of Bruce Wayne. Good night, Gotham. The Batman has you and us in safe hands. 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 In safe hands.